Junior speed to stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. One on the line, down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wait him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez with a double. Whip down the left field line, and they are going crazy at the Kingdom.
Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast.
We have the one and only Mr. Tom Hutler. Do you have any of your favorite stories from the Kingdom?
There was a time we had an earthquake, and so they were going to evacuate the building. So I was like getting up to go and leave. And they go, "No, you can't go. You got to read these safety things." It's like,
do we need to tell them that there's smoking's only on the exterior ramps?
Yeah. And Dave came shooting past. He signed off. I'm going, wait, I'm the only one here.
Listen and subscribe to Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
We got 4-time Gold Glove winners, 3-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger. And look, the reason why I bleached my hair back in the 2000s. What's up, Brett?
I love it. I love it. You had the hair, huh?
That was like my college look.
That was my thing. My kids still tease me about it. And they said, "Dad, why don't you go bleach your hair?" I said, "Dad's getting a little old for that." I said, that was just a phase I went through. It was kind of a shtick. And I used to tell people when I bleached my hair, I'd say the city expects it. So just don't worry about it. Get out of my way. Every 3 weeks, I had my routine.
Did you get your hair done by somebody here?
I did. No, I did. I had a young lady who would come to the ballpark, actually, and I had a barber chair. It was a hair bleaching station. And there was a couple guys on the Mariners that would get it done, too. But every 3 weeks, she would come in. We had a little office space off the clubhouse, and I'd get it done. So that was fun. That brings back pretty cool memories.
What up? This is Myron, and you are listening or checking out, if you're checking us out on YouTube, the Rye Bread and Mustard, a Mariners podcast. The Down on the Docks, on the other side of the tracks, 5-star dive bar podcast. And we are coming to you live from one of our dive bar establishments that we like to frequent when in the Seattle area. We're talking about MVPs on Aurora on Highway 99 and Hannah. MVPs has been in vintage form tonight, hasn't it?
Yeah, but you haven't seen vintage till you saw Game 7. I'm back at the scene of the crime where I watched Game 7.
Oh yeah, you were here on Game 7. That is right. I was down in Los Angeles and we didn't record. So the last time you were taking in live Mariner action, you were right here at MVPs. What was it like up in here?
It was wild. It was a good time. A lot of people. They had a silent auction going on. Yeah, fun time. Until.
Yeah. I mean, and now we're in here and it's kind of empty. I've been up here for a couple days here in Seattle. Had a non-refundable plane ticket for this Sunday night. Just, went and purchased that after that Game 5 victory. There was no way that the Mariners were not going to make it to the World Series. Well, Yeah, you know the rest. Anyways, this is the first time that we're back talking, and I do have to say, when I got here, I went down to Tacos and Tequila, and the last time I was there, everybody was high-fiving, dancing in the street. Go back down there. It is an empty, cold, Occidental, rye bread and mustard banners laying on the pavement down there. It was a sad scene. I took a picture. I'm going to put it on the social media, but it was just such a, just a feeling that I felt like maybe it started to go away in the last week, and then you go back and you see that, and you actually go back and you see other Mariner fans up here in Seattle, and it's kind of like when you had seen somebody after a death, like you put it away and then you look and you have a conversation with somebody else, and that pain comes right back to the top, but in a form of therapy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly did not have those feelings. Yeah, very disappointed, but nowhere near to what you were, I would say, talking about things with you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not going online. I'm not going to go make a video of me in the shower with my clothes on. Or I'm not going to have any of these freak out sessions and immediately jump into the fear of all the stuff. But that loss, that hurt. But there wasn't a screaming fit where I was. There was no, I'm going to go on and write anything. It was just like one of these, like, of course this happens. And then from there, the eating, the laying around, maybe the smoking of a little bit too many of the marijuana cigarettes may have happened over the last week, but I have definitely had a lot to eat. I will say that in the last week.
Yeah, I mean, if any way for this to happen to this Mariner ball club in Game 7, this is how it was going to happen, unfortunately. It was going to be a painful loss. It wasn't going to be a game where you get blown out or you just don't play well like you did in Game 6, because they didn't play well at all. But Game 7, they came out. They were focused. We talked about that the last time we talked. They brought it. They were ready to go. And unfortunately, the big bomb cost them, and a few other things too.
Yeah, you know what? We haven't talked about it on air. And really, we haven't talked about it in length between the two of us. It's been bits and fragments of certain things. So listen, we made a list. We had a meal over here. I got to say, MVP's wings secretly are so good. Had some wings, had some burgers, had some sodas, had some more wings, had some more burgers, had some more sodas, came up with a list of things that we were going to talk about. We talked about it, the feelings. What were our feelings? Yes, you and I fan way differently. That is for sure. We talk about that. I am more of the romantic type, I guess. But you were here. I was down in Los Angeles when this happened. And over the last week, I got to say, I've listened to very little sports talk. I've read some of the stuff on Seattle Times, but not all things. I've kind of just found other things to do. I haven't watched the World Series except for bits and fragments of it. I mean, I understand what's going on, and well, that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's just take this, and how much social media or radio have you been digesting?
Not too much. Social media. I've been listening to some sports radio, just to get an idea. I guess the only real social media thing I heard was now the latest, and I know we'll get to it, is the subliminal message, or that's what some of the Mariner fans think of what our players post online, but whatever, that's nothing to me. But
so we'll talk about that. Here's the list we got. Game 7 breakdown, we got to talk about it. ALCS breakdown as a whole, where we stand with Dan Wilson, where this sits as a heartbreak versus other Seattle sports heartbreaks. I made a list. I got top 10 heartbreaks I'd like to present to you, Hanno. I know we texted a little bit about it, but you've not seen my final list. Where do we sit with the Mariners going forward? In the last week or so, you've watched it talk about all the heartache you're starting to see the business of baseball become a topic. So we're going to talk about that, which also what immediate moves or thoughts jump out to you right now early on. What do we do as again, as a fan, how do we heal from this? We'll get into some comments. Maybe we might have to hold those off to the next show till we're doing it from in studio, because it's a little tricky here at the bar to not having multiple screens. We had that on the list. Oh, there are a couple PSAs we wanted to talk about, a couple things we don't want to see at the ballpark anymore. That was going into 2025. And then, what do you think of the press conferences and the way they did it this year, where it was more of like a media scrum? It seemed like. And then, yes, we'll get into the Josh Naylor drama. And so that is our episode. Hopefully we'll stick to that and go to this order. Let's jump right into it. We haven't talked about it. Game 7. Let me just give you a spoiler on my top 10 list somewhere. You'll have to see where it goes. But yes, brutal loss. Another game of the double plays, questionable decisions maybe, and then again, not getting anything from your offense, not being able to really manufacture any runs except for that run in the first inning. Let's just start with you. Let's just go.
Yeah, so going into that game, the last time we talked was after game 6, and that was just a total dud by this Mariner club. And I told you we need a couple things to happen in game 7. We need these guys to be focused, and we need a lot out of our stars. And we got both, in my opinion. Kirby started the game. I thought he was fantastic. Changed up kind of the way that he pitched in the previous games in this series. Loved the way he attacked. He was on fire. Loved it. The game was going along just like I believe the Mariners wanted it to.
And let me stop you right there to ask you a question. Would you have left Kirby in another inning?
I see both sides of it. What I see is that hindsight, yes, but I see their decision making going back in the order through the order the third time. Kirby hasn't been as strong, but man, he was just so fantastic. So if things would have worked out like the Mariners had planned they would and the way things were going, I was fine with it. But you've seen it too. You've seen the third time through the lineup, they're getting to the heart of the order. He might give up one, but he was so dominant and rolling. So, it's just one of those things that I was okay with at the time and pretty much still am. And you'll get a lot of that feeling from me as we talk through this game.
Yeah. There's a part of me that goes, he was rolling. Why don't you stick with him? But then we go back to the very first game of the playoffs that the Mariners played. And you go, why'd you leave him in so long? So every side of this is tough. These are all tough calls, especially when you're playing an offense like that where 1 through 9, they scare you. And again, when I say 1 through 9, they scare you. The Mariners did not scare you 1 through 9 in this playoff series.
No, that was very evident for sure. Bottom of the lineup was really not there at times for us, but in game 7, I thought you got more than you have gotten out of the bottom of the lineup from some points in this series.
I could give you that.
JP came through with a big double. There were a couple walks by Robles. But you saw what happened at the end of the game when who came up to bat, and both players got blown away at that point.
Yeah. And so just going back to the whole Kirby thing, the handoff of the ball to Brian Wu and seeing what Brian Wu was doing.
Loved the decision. Loved the way it was playing out. The way Wu was pitching and going there. The Mariners could not have written it any better, in my opinion. Kirby was fantastic. Like I mentioned, you needed something out of your stars. You got home runs from the big dumper and Julio. You had that 3-run lead. Just absolutely perfect. hoping that Wu could get through that 7th. And I believe the Mariners had planned out for Munoz then to get the 8th and the 9th with clean innings to start. But that 7th inning, it just didn't work out. First batter, Wu was not even close. None of those pitches were competitive. Walked the first guy. Next guy hits Isaiah Kiner-Falefa hit that one up the middle, and I was really shocked at what I saw from the TV angle. I could not believe that wasn't a double play ball. I don't know where JP started off, but he wasn't anywhere near that double play depth. You think that's an easy double play, so that was super frustrating. I haven't gone back to try to find where he started off or anything, but
I can't.
That was a killer.
Yeah, that was. And let's just get right to it. The decision that was made there. There's 3 or 4 different ways you could go, right? Reasonable ways. You could have let Wu work through it. There was that option. The other option that seems pretty obvious that people are saying, and I've felt and I've moved on and off of this in the last week, is you go get Munoz right there. You shoot your shot with that part in the order. Another option is, are you bringing Brash back in from the night before? He threw less than Bizzardo, I believe, but he hadn't been sharp. And I understand Bizzardo's the guy that you've been going to all year. If this is a regular season game, you're probably going to him right there. But did pitch 2 innings the night before.
It was stellar.
Was absolutely stellar, but threw hard. They all have. Let's get into that decision right here.
So let's go with Wu first. If he would have not been so wild to start that inning and then that lazy ground ball up the middle, obviously you cannot block the first guy. That was the biggest blow to me. And, who do you go to next? You thinking Brash? I didn't think Brash was going to be available, I didn't think that was the right moment for him. He was not good the game before. Looked tired. His stuff wasn't sharp. And if they would have brought him in, sure, maybe they would have got a base hit, and that's a lot better than a 3-run homer. But I just think the decision was correct not to go with him. You talk about Munoz. Yeah, maybe you should have had him warming up. Totally see that. But I don't like Munoz coming into a game in the middle of the inning with runners on either.
Yeah, I don't like it.
He hasn't been good about it. He hasn't good.
And here's the thing. Here's the other part of that. Let's just say he pitches you through that inning. Maybe 1 run only comes in and pitches you the next inning. Now we got to close the game down with a 1-run game in the 9th inning with probably that part of the order coming back up, and you don't have your shutdown closer. Then you would hear the criticism of that.
Possibly. Absolutely. I mean, he would. Either way, the way Dan Wilson goes, he's going to get criticized, in my opinion. So they go with Bizzardo, going into it, I was like, oh, makes sense. He's been really good for you. 7th inning's kind of his. You got to get out of this jam. But you bet your ass when he got brought in, the long ball crossed my mind. But I wasn't thinking the sinker. I thought it was going to be a hanging slider. But the worst possible thing happened. You would rather had a base hit or something like that. And the big bomb. And at that point, you knew the Mariners being so good, they had a chance. But I didn't really feel like it was going to come back. It was such a backbreaker.
For me, I'll tell you the moment that I knew that the game was over and the Mariners were not going to the World Series. It wasn't when Springer hit that 3-run shot. The Mariners still had 6 outs left. You only had to get to 7 guys to get Dumper up there again. I looked at where the order was, and the very next inning, Randy Rosarena swings at the very first pitch, 1 out. And then the infamous at-bat with Gino Suarez. And when that happened and Gino lost himself in that situation with the umpire and let him have it, which I get. I listened to the John Boy thing. That was a strike on that last one, but the umpire had been so inconsistent on not calling that a strike, and then he does call a strike right there. But when that moment happened after Gino, that's when I knew things weren't going to happen. And then maybe in the last inning for a second there when Julio was up there, I was believing, man, this guy's going to get on. Dumper, of course, is going to hit a 2-run home run, and we're going to be on our way down to L.A. Julio had, after what I would say his best at-bat, the home run that he hit, I think this was his next at-bat, if I'm correct, or maybe it was 2 at-bats. But in this game, you saw one of the best at-bats you'll ever see out of Julio. And I thought that last at-bat was terrible.
Yeah, they did to him what you would think all teams should do to him, send him outside and he goes fishing. But, it's just, for me, absolutely bizarro. Gave it up. But that leadoff walk, like I mentioned, by Wu, none of the pitches were competitive. I think it was a 4-pitch walk. You just can't do that. You see it so many times. I complain about it all the time. You can't walk the leadoff hitter, especially in crunch time like that. So I'm not blaming him, but it has a lot to do with the loss. I mean, a lot of things have to do with the loss. That inning was set up perfectly for Brash. They decided to use him in game 6 in a game maybe you didn't need to. Mariners are down, and he looked gassed and awful. Like I said, just didn't have his stuff. There's things that happen throughout the whole series that, played a big part in that inning.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you do walk the leadoff guy at that point in the game, you're asking for the bullpen to get really, really busy. And you're right. And you have to take into the consideration the injury to Wu. And
yeah, definitely.
And everybody was kind of acting like this, and I was buying into it a little bit too, where like you have to go to Munoz there. Like this is Marshawn Lynch at the 1-yard line. That wouldn't have been the case. Like you said, Munoz coming in a hold situation in the middle of an inning. Sure, he might do it a handful of times a year, but for the most part, he doesn't do that. And that's not where you want him to start an inning off fresh and get in a groove, just like you would with a starter. So again, it's just execution. And I really point to this happening in this game at other things that happened not only in this series, but in the Mariners playoff run inside the playoffs.
Absolutely.
Just you can't have 15-inning game 5s. You can't not produce runs to the point that you run your pitching into the ground. And yeah, your starting pitching wasn't as sharp. You didn't have Brian Wu at all, except for in this series in that capacity. You have Brian Wu, you might cruise through the first round much easier. You go out there and you wouldn't have to pitch 3 starters, 4 starters, and all 7 of them in the extra inning game. So I look at that as a factor. But at the end of the day, as a whole, the Mariners offense is really what failed them in the long run. Like if I had to point at something, sure, maybe this decision didn't work out in the game when you're ahead right there, but the execution wasn't there. And I think the fatigue is the reason why the execution wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I see why all these ex-players that are, pundits on these shows say you got to go with your best guy in that moment. Yeah, I get that. Meaning have Munoz ready. Obviously, the Mariners weren't thinking that way. They were going with more of what they've done throughout the regular season, but this is a whole different ballgame. But getting back to what you mentioned, too, about previous series, previous games, we learned that Logan Gilbert pitched his butt off against Detroit, but we learned that he's just not as good and not as sharp when he comes back on short days rest. And then the other thing, the strategy, like I said, Kirby was attacking those guys. Totally different way of pitching. And they waited till game 7 to kind of change that up. So it's just so many different things you can point to that was a killer.
Yeah. I mean, when Bryce Miller turns out to be your most solid starter.
He attacked, too.
In the playoffs. And I'm not knocking Bryce Miller or his ability. I thought he had a great postseason, but I'm just saying when that was the guy and you line up all the rest of the guys that just weren't as sharp, they all had their good moments in the playoffs. Like I didn't feel like a pitcher came out there and shit the bed. Every one of them contributed to the Mariners' forward momentum in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, it's that offense. The offense did not perform. And I feel like we'll get into this in a second. Because first I want to ask you, where do you stand with Dan Wilson as your manager? Do you look at it as like, hey, it's your first time through the playoffs? Also, again, things are look through a big, magnifying glass or microscope or fucking AI. What did you think of this decision and just Dan Wilson as a whole?
Like I said, going into it, seeing that Bizarro was the guy who walked out of the bullpen, I was fine with it. Been good. The inning and the situation, how he's pitched. And I just said too, I understand why you would want Munoz in that situation. Yeah, it's his first year. Things start happening fast. I don't know if he needs more help, meaning on his coaching staff. It's hard to say. First year manager going through this, and all, players play, managers manage. You hope that Dan always puts the guy in the right situation. You hope that Bizarro would have came out and did what he did the previous day in most of the playoffs. Things could go a lot different. The Mariners script, kind of how they hope things will go. We know that through with the front office and stuff like that. Sometimes you got to divert from that. Not every situation's figured out or goes right like you want. So there's just a lot of things, obviously it was the most important point in that ball game, in that series. And I just think, sometimes you make the correct decision, sometimes you don't. So, it's a bummer, but I'm not blaming Dan Wilson personally.
No, that was I felt like he got a lot of national scrutiny from that. And I get shooting your shot right there. And I think that would have been, again, there's complications to what do you do next after that. But if you were living in that moment just for that moment, I think you go to Andres Munoz right there. And it just didn't pay off, and it didn't pay off immediately. But again, it wasn't the bottom of the ninth. You didn't lose the game right there. You still had chances to come up and scratch together one run, and you didn't do that. And I think that's where the ownership as a whole in this series needs to go. And that's another thing on our list now. We'll get into these with more episodes, but like what are you doing going forward here as the Mariners?
Well, my opinion, the series changed in game 3. You have a 2-0 lead. You didn't win either of those games, 3 and 4. And then game 6 was so bad. They played so poorly defensively. Didn't look like they had any juice. And, so there's so many different things to get you up to that point. But yeah, that point in the series, it's magnified because you did, and you had a lead too. So I get everything you're saying. It's just, I think as a whole, if you look at everything holistically, there's just so many different things that killed you in this series.
Yeah, and so where do you go going forward?
With Dan Wilson?
No, I meant with just in general as the Mariners. That was the question, yeah. Like, what are you doing now?
You're hoping to obviously re-sign some of your free agents. Naylor, Polanco. You saw a lot of different positions. You're just not good enough to compete. I'm sorry. The bottom of the order wasn't that good. You saw right field might be an issue. There's just a lot of things, you're supposed to, everybody talked about when the Mariners get in the playoffs, they have this dominant staff. Well, they had a lot of injuries this year. they weren't as dominant as you would think. Some of the strategy, like I mentioned, they finally started attacking these hitters differently. So, and then you go with the decisions with Dan Wilson. Maybe you get somebody with a little bit more experience to help him out on his coaching staff. I'm sure they're great coaches. Woodward does a great job with the pitching staff. I don't know how good he is at thinking ahead to get the right guys up at the right time, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're just not there. So maybe, I like Maniac. He's good, but is he the right guy to be, the one, his right-hand man talking through these situations? There's just a lot of unknowns.
You're thinking of let me just throw this out there. This is just hypothetical. You're thinking maybe like a mentor type other coach to come in that's been successful, like a Ron Washington or like that kind of. What was the guy that used to be in Tampa Bay and was in Anaheim and in Chicago? Glasses.
Joe Madden.
Joe Madden. Like somebody. Or hell, why don't we just bring Lou back and have him sit right there? You know,
it's hard. Joe Torre had what's his name? God, I just get
Don Zimmer.
Yeah. Lou Piniella had Lee Elia.
I hear you. You have a young coach as far as experience, right? And he wasn't doing or managing. And he wasn't doing any managing in the minor leagues. And then
this is all new.
You kind of surround him and you pick the coaching staff. And there's a lot of younger guys on that coaching staff. I mean, both of your base coaches, I think I'm older than both of them. So, and I'm not old,
Yeah, it's just something to think about. I don't know if it's the right decision or not,
I like that.
But it definitely could be, the lack of experience. I mean, what do you expect when you go with a first-year manager who's never managed in any minor league or obviously the major leagues? I mean, stuff can happen. It goes fast.
And I also want to say, hey, I like Manny Acta, and he's been around a lot, but you don't look at him and go, that's a winning manager, a former manager, where, maybe you can find somebody in baseball that can have sort of like an Edgar type situation, your bench coach, just like you said.
I mean, I don't think Joe Madden would ever come here. Probably he wants to be a manager, I would assume. Again, I don't know where, Bob Melvin type manager is in his career, if he wants to manage again, or if he likes Seattle and, would want to come and be that right-hand man. I'm sure Dan played for him, correct, in that era?
Yeah.
So maybe they have a relationship, but once you're a manager, you want to be the top dog making all the decisions, but maybe he won't get that decision because, he hasn't had success, San Diego, San Francisco. Maybe this is like a bridge for him to come on board at this point. It's hard to say.
Yeah. I think somebody maybe on the older side as well, that's like, just wants to be around the game, still knows how to make decisions, but sure, if you're that tenured, maybe you'd want a front office job instead of that. I don't know, but it is something to think about. Going down our list here, the next question was immediate thoughts or moves. You just jumped into it a little bit there. As we've read through articles and heard things, it kind of something from last year's kind of back now, and that's possibly having to trade Luis. It looks like maybe like Luis Castillo could be a candidate again to be traded, especially because of the salary that he has. And another person that's been brought up, and Divish is even talking about this, that they might have to entertain the thought of trading Randy Rosarena because of his arbitration jumping up. I think he's putting $5.5 million more on that paycheck there. I think he's at 18.2. They suspect that's what's going on. And Luis Castillo, 24. You notably do not have to pay Mitch Garver anymore. So that's 12 million. Haniger's off the list. So right now, as the Mariners look, and those are the big notable ones, and obviously Josh Naylor's a free agent. Polanco is going to opt out on that $6 million. You'd think everybody knows he's going to do it. So he's going to be a free agent. And Eugenio Suarez, without any of them on your roster, and the way it is, minus those guys that we just spoke of, and there are other arbitrations, but with all of those put all together, it seems like the Mariners are going to be starting off free agency at like a payroll around 100 or what,
160, 170,
130, but probably going to spend 160. And you'd figure Josh Naylor, from the looks of things, going to be 20 year, not 20 years. It's going to be 20. Josh Naylor will be 20 million or maybe more a year, around there. Probably a 4 or 5 year deal. Polanco, you'd probably think maybe something that looks similar to Mitch Garver's,
Yeah.
or in between Mitch Garver's and Mitch Haniger, somewhere in there. And then similar to that would be a Eugenio Suarez. I know he hit 49 home runs this year, but I'm sure everybody around the league knows how streaky he is. And I'd love to have all three of those guys back. I don't know if there's a way they can do it with incentive-laden stuff. I'm sure all three of those guys that have a case of like, no, everything guaranteed for the types of seasons that they're coming off of. And I look at Polanco, though, and I go, I do like this season. I do want him back. I love the switch hitting in the lineup, especially with Cal, and having him and Cal in the lineup. It's such a look. He carried this team for points in this season and through games in the postseason. That is, I'm not denying that, but you still have to think about that injury. I mean, that is a big part of his career. You look at Eugenio Suarez, you wonder where he's at or when you're going to see a dip. He's been very patchworky. But on the other hand, I kind of think of a guy, totally different kind of player who played third base, but Adrian Beltre, right? You know, where he just kind of kept putting up good seasons through his 30s. Is Eugenio Suarez going to be like that? I mean, you look at him now, how many home runs he has. I mean, he's got a nice outside chance if he can put together another good 5 years. You're talking HOF consideration somewhere down the line. I'm saying it right here, if that can happen. And then Josh Naylor, the most talked about free agent for the Mariners to re-sign in I don't know how many years.
Yeah, let's start with Naylor. I mean, how many times have we had a guy get traded here and say he loves it and he loves hitting at T-Mobile Park?
Never.
I mean, never. Exactly.
That's the answer, 0.
Yeah. He fit in very well. Played first base even better than kind of what was talked about from the way I understood it coming over here. He's a gamer. He's got so many different intangibles. Obviously, he's the number one priority, but you got to pay for good players. So hopefully the Mariners do that. I mean, they made so much money this last part of the year in the postseason, and they're not really going to up their payroll any. They could, but it doesn't sound like they're going to. It's probably a type of thing where they'll get the guys, let's say, at the least, you need to get Naylor and Polanco, in my opinion, and hopefully have some money, and they would run it back like they did this year, you know, try to be in it, and then be able to extend the payroll at the trade deadline. That's just kind of how I see it happening and kind of what I think they would do.
Yeah, I'm expecting and I'm hoping and I'm thinking you're going to see an expansion more of the payroll this year. And
you think that's happening?
I feel if there's ever been a chance to do this, it's now. I know we look back and we go, what about these years that we could have when we had this epic pitching? And I agree. But now you see how close you were. But when you stacked yourself up against Toronto or you watch the Dodgers or even if you watch the Phillies, you can tell that and you saw how the Mariners stacked up against them in the season. They have a great team. They've built a great team. You got to hand it to the Shadow and Jerry DiPoto, what they've done, but they're still missing a piece here and missing a piece there. You're still missing a bullpen piece. You'd hope, let's just going back to the beginning of the season or even the season before that. That's where this Gregory Santos guy was supposed to be. Never worked out. Well, you have to fill that position. Probably another lefty. I think about where you're talking about run it back. Let's just start with Randy Arozarena. Sure, you could trade him, and he's in his last year of that deal. It's not like you're on the hook for $18 million per years to come after that. And if you get rid of him, you're still going to have to go out there and replace him. So
Yeah, and all his production, no doubt.
So sure, you'd rather pay him about 15, but maybe you can get him to extend and you can lower that down. I mean, he's a good outfielder. He just should not be your leadoff hitter. That just did not work out.
Yeah, I mean, really, we shouldn't be talking about the Mariners just, getting in the playoffs and getting this far along.
No.
It should have been talked about the last couple of years, and working their way up to this at least, or having the experience of being in games like this. But, they didn't spend then. I think it makes all the sense in the world to you and me and other fans to, not have to charge like they do every time at the end of the year, work their tails off when you could expand the payroll a little bit, have the first 2/3 of the season before the trade deadline, playing better with better players and, making it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah, and head into the playoffs, like you said, not just playing balls to the wall and then having to play series balls to the wall like that. You'd like to set yourself up much better. And the way you can do that is with a deeper roster. The depth on this team was not there, and that was evident in the playoffs. There was nobody for Dan Wilson to feel real comfortable going and grabbing off the bench. You didn't have somebody that you're like, oh, I can't wait till they're in the game. Oh, wait until this situation. We played teams that had those parts, and Dan Wilson had to manage and maneuver around it, and it felt like the other managers didn't. And the depth is a huge thing, and definitely got it, like you said, something in right field. What are you going to do at third base? You have been. I don't know what I feel with Ben Williamson and Cole Young. I feel like if you're relying on them instead of signing other people, like a Polanco or a Eugenio, I'd rather that to be a problem. That these guys are so good. Why did we sign these dudes? Because if you have those dudes and you sign them, you can always give them away. Somebody's going to need a Polanco. Somebody's going to need a Eugenio at a break. So, if you sign him and then Ben Williamson or Cole Emerson comes up and is just so undeniably that's the guy, it's not like you're not going to not be able to maneuver out of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Ben Williamson, you have an option there. It was a massive hole in the postseason at second base. Polanco, when, we could even talk about that. Maybe he should have been playing second, but defense, he wasn't there. Rivas made the plays to help you that you don't think that Polanco would make. But you brought up Rivas, late in the year, a guy who wasn't even playing late in the year. Cole Young, you can't fault him his first full season. It's just, I don't know.
There's a lot of Tacoma Rainiers on this team, and especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Luke Raley had a down year. You're not going to think about.
I forgot he was even on the team
going into first base the season with him being your first baseman. I mean, that's not championship caliber team. That's why Naylor's so critical, or a player like him. He just brought so much, but like we said, even with the Mariners getting this far, you could see all the different holes at different positions that you didn't see with how Toronto played. They 1 through 9, they had a better lineup, in my opinion.
Yeah, everybody in that lineup hit the Mariners. Everybody in that lineup hit the Yankees. And I know we're not talking about this Dodgers series, but they're hitting the Dodgers too. So Toronto is a team that, from the time I saw them in April to when we played them in the playoffs, were so much better.
Yeah, I mean, they put pressure on you. They put the ball in play. I mean, if you could get since we were talking about, if you get Ben Williamson to play his defense like he does, and we saw him at the big league level, and then hit like Clement did for the Blue Jays, kind of gap to gap guy. We saw that Williamson improved going down to the minors. Power came up a little bit, but if you could get even close to Clement, I mean, you're down in the order guy, but man, he put pressure on you too, and you were nervous when he was up at the plate. You just need threats all around your lineup, and towards the end of the order, we just didn't have any threats. No. I felt like that would scare
after we got through the first six, I would almost skip the next inning if I knew that the end of the order was coming up, going like, well, we're not going to get him in the fourth, but if we can keep it close until the fifth, we'll have another shot to put some runs on the board, and that's we can't have that anymore. But the lineup has gotten longer. It's considerably better than the season prior. And look, and you saw the ascension of Big Dumper, and Julio had a great season at the plate, and Polanco had a bounce back. I feel like you are going to see Polanco back on this team. I feel like maybe that's the safer bet, even over Naylor, as much as I want to get Naylor. But let's talk about Naylor. Actually, one quick thing. We said Luis Castillo. What are you doing right there?
Yeah, he has in my opinion, a really great contract. He pitched his ass off this year. Sure, he had that month stretch where he wasn't very good, but man, he goes out every day and posts. Fantastic pitcher for you. And like I said, the contract's not that expensive. If you were to trade him away, I don't think you're going to be getting the production back. I'm sure maybe that money will help you then go out and trade for somebody offensively. I mean,
but if you were to go out, there's free agent pitchers, and you could be like, you can get somebody similar to Castillo, and maybe you can get them for a little bit cheaper. But if it's that little of a difference with the camaraderie you have than what he brings to the rest of the staff, and he's still a big game pitcher. I mean, this is another one of the guys we talk about, Logan coming out of the bullpen. He was the winning pitcher in that 15-inning game. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. But if you need more offense and you don't have the payroll to do it, I totally understand it. I mean, what are the Mariners' thoughts with Hancock? Do they think he's more of a reliever? Would they put him back there?
I'll tell you what
would they go with what's his name? Meatball.
I don't like either of those options, but I'm gonna go with a wild card option. Not Logan Evans, not Hitchcock. What is this Cade Anderson guy going to look like next year? You're starting to get a lot of reports that he's very close. This isn't a guy that they got out of high school. This is somebody who pitched in college, so maybe he's closer to premiering. And we look at the Savage guy, moved up every single level of every kind of baseball you could play, from A to B. From A to B. From A to long A to double A to triple A to the big leagues to the playoffs to the ALCS to the fucking World Series. I mean, maybe we see something like that out of Anderson or somebody from down there that makes this, just this big charge here in the spring that you can look around and go, okay, maybe we can deal.
I agree.
But I think if you're going to try to go and replace Luis with whoever else is out there and available, I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think only if your foundation gets so strong that you can make that move. And again, like Wu, he's a guy that's been injured quite a bit in his baseball career. Bryce was injured this last year, looks fine now. Logan fought injuries. Kirby fought injuries. The only guy that didn't fight injuries this year that were significant at all was Luis Castillo.
Yeah, he didn't miss a start. I mean, when you're talking about Anderson, I agree with you. I don't see him at all starting his pro career in the big leagues. Yeah, he could definitely be like a Yasevich type guy later on. But you can go get any type of fifth starter on the open market. It's not going to kill you, like you mentioned. Trade Castillo, use that money to get some more hitting, third base, second base, right field, whatever. yeah, that's definitely an option. But, seeing how the kid reacts to pro ball and, how dynamic he is and will be, hopefully, yeah, that's definitely a scenario where he would, I can see him being brought up later on in the year.
That's like, again, I'm not even saying that's going to, I just want to be clear to the stat department listening here. I'm not saying that's like something we have to think. I'm saying if you saw something that crazy, then I'm moving on from Luis Castillo. If there's a number that, yes, we are dealing with the Seattle Mariners and their budget, that they might want to do that. But you're right. It might be an attractive contract to a team that needs somebody like Luis Castillo. But at the same time, do you want to give another team that ace in the hole? You know, that piece that maybe puts them over the top? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a good chunk of money, though. I mean, I think he's going to be owed 24, maybe 25 or something in the next, that's year by year over the next 3 years. That can get you something pretty good on the open market as far as a hitter. So it's an option. If they decide to go that way, it wouldn't surprise me. They talked about it last year. They didn't do it. But I mean, I don't really mind either way. Obviously, I'd like to keep him around, like you mentioned. It improves other clubs. I'd hate to face him and have him, just shove against us.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Castillo though is 24.1 for 26 and 27, and then invested $25 million, 2028, unrestricted free agent in 2029.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pay money to good players, I think,
But that's if he pitches 180 innings. But that's what he's been doing. So I'm not so jumping on that unless it's an absolute need to make not a trim down. And I know at the press conference, it seemed like the GMs were, especially DePoto, really still putting on the whole, like, look, we're going to put a solid team together and we're going to make moves at the break like we usually do. So I feel like the approach is still going to be the same.
Yeah, run it back and then, once we're in the thick of things, expand and go after guys. And I mean, it makes sense. You got a bunch of guys in the minors who are highly touted. You can use them to go after and get somebody. Absolutely. That's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Well, let's move on down the list. They're cranking the country music louder and louder. It seems like it probably wants us to get the fuck out of here. Here's something. Let's leave the team alone for a second, and we'll come back to Naylor. We both agreed that there is something that absolutely needs to be gone, and it's not hot dogs from heaven, Hannah. Until you see the hot dogs raining down to you, you can't make that judgment. But the one thing that we have, you cut me off right there. That's exactly what we're talking about. We need to get rid of this fucking rally shoe. This thing is stupid. And listen, it worked in that one game against Toronto 3 years ago, and it hasn't worked. It didn't work in this last series. It's done. It's stupid. And listen, I know as a kid we used to have rally stuff where we have put our hats on inside out. And guess what? I wish I could call up Marty McFly and Doc right now. Get me in that time machine so I could go punch myself as a kid for doing that. I think that stuff is stupid. I don't like it.
I agree with you. I'm an old fuddy-duddy who doesn't like it either. It worked a few years ago, like you mentioned, but it actually kind of did finally work in Game 5. Even though
a broken clock.
But other than that, it's been a dud. It didn't work in the 18-inning game. It's just stupid. Do people not realize what they're stepping on around that area?
And also, people aren't realizing when you're standing there or sitting there, you're putting a shoe on your head. Now I can't see over your stupid, dirty shoe.
I'm with you, bud.
It's one of the dumbest things out of all the things that the Mariners have. That, and here's the other thing that I want them to stop doing. And Amos-Sean brought this, or AG1 brought this up. He says there's just too many chants at the game. Too many MVP chants in the middle of the game. Too many chanting. like, people complain about the wave. Don't do the wave during certain times of the game, which, okay, we agree on. Let's tone it down on the chants. Let's not hating that this guy's getting an MVP chant. He's my MVP, hands down. But we don't need to be chanting MVP in the 6th inning of a game that we're down 5 runs. It's annoying.
I get it. I guess I would.
You do it afterwards. Maybe the next time he's up after he dropped a big home run and we're up 4 runs. Game's in the bag. Let's get the chance going.
Well, it doesn't bother me as much, and I'll just say this for Devil's Advocate.
Okay.
Naylor brought up how he loves the Seattle crowd and how engaged
I do too. I love the reactions.
So I don't know. It is what it is for me.
The chants feel too soccery to me. I love the big explosion. I love the music. I love the pump of the music after a base clear and double. Let's rock this place. Do they have to have this music this damn loud in here? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you something earlier when I was here. I think I did tell you this. There's this guy over there playing pool who's probably in his 60s, who's must have found some cocaine from the 80s, and just absolutely you get it. The big coked up pool player that was over there put in a rock block request on the jukebox. He's of Rod Stewart music. I mean, it was wall to wall Rod Stewart music for this guy. I didn't even know Rod Stewart had that many songs, but I heard every song that Rod Stewart probably did. And the volume was absolutely, I've never heard a Rod Stewart song cranked that loud in my life, nor do I ever want to hear it again. But yeah, before we get out of here, we do have to talk about Josh Naylor. All the fans, this is where we fan differently from maybe these people that are like, this is their first run with the Mariners and this is their first heartbreak. We've had a lot of it. Again, that's why I didn't have a screaming fit when it happened. I didn't go on, make a instant reaction video or started jumping down ownership or whatever, or talking about how depressed we are. We told you here today. It's a lot of eating. That's how we coped with it. Okay. But Josh Naylor goes on Instagram on Cal Raleigh's post, if you don't know. So it's like the end of the year. Thanks everybody and the fans. Like, hey, we accomplished a lot. Last time you heard from Cal Raleigh, he said it was a failure. So he's coming on and, making sure everybody knows. Okay, it's great. Mariners are commenting on it. Josh Naylor gets on there, writes something that everybody wants to dissect, that a real or I'd say the real idiot fans, out there are already going to go jump off the Aurora Bridge over these comments because of the choice of words. But you and I were looking at it and we were saying there's really nothing except for the C around or the Godspeed or something like that, I guess, that you can make a case of. But I don't know. We could break it down or not.
Well, I mean, my opinion is that, I read it, looked at it, there's a lot of ways you can interpret it. I just interpreted it as, when he said, what did he say? My neck hurts from seeing you or something like that.
Yeah, I'll pull up the comments right now.
Anyway, I just took it as he was saying that because Cal hit so many home runs. He's not going to come out and say, hey, it was great playing with this year. Can't wait to see you in Peoria in early March. He hopefully, to benefit him, he made himself a lot of money in the playoffs this year. It's his first time being a free agent. Of course, I want him back. But he's going to do what is best for him. It will be heartbreaking if we don't get Josh Naylor back, for me at least.
Well, one, prepare for it, and not because on the Mariners end. I've talked about this with Josh Naylor with you. This is a professional baseball player that has travel. He's not somebody that strikes me as like, I got to be somewhere. He's just kind of like on to the next thing. But coming from Canada, going and playing for Miami, going over to San Diego, making his name in Cleveland, down to Arizona, come to Seattle, and really once again got to showcase himself. I mean, the ratings on these Mariners, Toronto Blue Jays games and the Detroit series were up. I mean, this is the biggest exposure.
Yeah, all through baseball. It's been great.
Is bigger exposure than when he was playing against the Yankees with Cleveland. And he didn't have a storyline behind him like he did here. So he got to showcase himself. And if I'm Josh Naylor, I'm also seeing what else is out there. Sure, Seattle sounds great. You've been there. You've been under their hood. They've been under yours. It sounds like the Mariners took care of him during the pregnancy part of his or delivery. Pregnancy delivery. What word am I looking for? Birth of his child. So maybe those things go far, and also the team. I'm sure he loves playing with Cal Raleigh. I'm sure he loves playing with Julio, and the hard-nosed type of player that he is. I think Cal is also going to lean on ownership. I think he's got that kind of swag with him, right? So, or that kind of stroke with him, excuse me. But if you want the comments, he says, "My neck still hurts, but it was worth it all." Meaning, yes.
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
Or their headbutt that they do sometimes.
True. Yep. Good
Okay.
point.
Also, could be an inside joke. Could be an inside information between each other. See you around, my friend. Could be a little tongue-in-cheek, knowing maybe we're coming back this year. I'll be seeing you around, as in across the locker room, across the aisle on the plane. Did you ever think about that? Give me a zoom in here. Did you ever think about that? I don't think a lot of fans did. And what's he say after that? A heart emoji. How cryptic. Again, what is the problem with that? Give me the zoom here. We'll always be rooting for you because they're going to be on the team forever. They're going to retire as Mariners. It says it right there. Godspeed. Some people would say that's kind of see you later, good luck, sayonara, or it could mean we got Godspeed. We're two slow runners that swipe bags. And as a team, Cal and Josh Naylor are Godspeed. Again, inside baseball. This is what it could all mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the other point where he said, I'll see you around. Yeah, I'll see you around in the dugout. It could mean I'll see you around next year from the opposite dugout. There's a lot of ways to look at things. I'm with you there. But the way you categorized it, I mean, it definitely could be a positive thing, no doubt.
Yeah, I'll see you at the Pike Place Market. You know, I'll see you over at Tacos and Tequilas. You know, when I'm feeling like a hot dog, I'll see you around Al's Gourmet Sausages. You know, I'll see you around the In the Clutch.com apparel. And if I see you around there, I'll remind you to use the Rye Bread and Mustard promo code, all one word. You see what we just did there?
I do.
That was just,
good.
I've had the perfect amount of pot and junk food.
You're getting good at this.
I am. I'm getting all right. I'm getting okay. I think we covered this whole thing. I also just feel like Josh Naylor just knows exactly what he's doing. I'd be doing this too. You know, and also maybe just, I don't know. Again, I think fans and social media and losing and fear of losing is losing more than they already have, and you know, being so close and thinking it's going to be another 25 years, and now the team's going to get dismantled. And I think there's a section, or I guess be a bigger section of fans that kind of want that kind of stuff to happen, just to be like, we told you so. So that's my thought on it. But we did promise you this, and we're going to get the fuck out of here. I wanted to keep this under an hour, but we're over it now. Okay, this loss, it's still sticking around, right? But in my Seattle's worst heartbreaks of all time, I said this last week, and I want to see if anything changed in the time. But I had number 10. These are personal to me, so this is, if you're listening, You want to write down your 10? Here's your chance to get a pen and pencil or type them in here. Top 10 saddest or just lowest heartbreaking moments as a Seattle sports fan. For me, Scott Service goes to Robbie Ray in Houston, followed by the 18-inning affair. I mean, that whole series, but definitely that. I don't know what was worse, the 18 innings where we got no runs or Scott Service. I think Scott Service going to Robbie Ray, number 10 on my list. Number 9, Sean Kemp being traded. The Sonics were never the same. For me, growing up in that time period, when Sean Kemp was traded for Vin Baker, that was the beginning of the end. I mean, the Sonics were at the highest of highs during my childhood and early teen years, and we'll get to the other part of this countdown. But number 9, that would be Sean Kemp getting traded. Number 8 was the refuse to lose magical 1995 run ends. You know the famous picture, Joey Cora crying in the dugout. A young Alex Rodriguez, who was supposed to be the guy to lift us to those newer heights with his arm around his shoulder. Never happened, folks. But just because that was the first Mariners magical run, if you're new to the Mariners and you felt that with this team, that's exactly how we felt in 1995. That was a bit of a surprise, but the way it happened was so magical. And so the ending of that, and again, had to do with my age as well.
Yeah.
Number 7, Ken Griffey Jr. being traded. Still remember where I was. I remember where I was in all of these things right here. But Ken Griffey Jr. being traded in the year 2000, or asking to be traded, but actually when he got traded, I would say number 7. Number 6, we're going back to the Seattle Supersonics. In 1994, they were a number 1 seed with a 2-0 lead. It's a 5-game series back then in the first round. They had a 2-0 lead on the number 8 Denver Nuggets, and they ended up losing the next 2 games in Denver, come back home to try to right their wrongdoings. They lose, also known as the Dikembe Mutombo game. RIP. Remember where I was for that one. Number 5, the Seattle Seahawks lose Super Bowl 40. Seattle Seahawks lose Super Bowl 40 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The terribly officiated game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our first taste of the Super Bowl. Man, that was a nasty hangover. Number 4, coming in, the 2001 116 win season loses in the ALCS to the Yankees. I thought that was a really tough one. And we had to sit around and think about that for how many years?
Yeah.
That's why it's high up on my list. And you're like, wow. I mean, that has been the talk. That has been the cloud, right, from that season. It's not even that people are like, that maybe jumped into the Mariners later. Maybe you're younger and you're like, you know the years. But maybe you don't know about that season. I mean, that was from April, the first week of the season, until when they had to play a brand new Yankees team in the ALCS after 9/11. That loss hurt. And it hurt so bad then. And maybe those details get lost in it, but that's high up on my list. And that brings me to number 3, which I'm going to say is this. This moment right now that we just had last week is probably number 3 in my all-time Seattle heartbreaking moments. Just everything that went through the team, the storylines, the 15-inning affair, being up 2-0, being 1 game up. I mean, 1 game away. Just the flashbacks of the home runs that kind of just, triggered the feelings of the Robbie Ray thing, or just even my number 2, which is Marchand doesn't get the ball. And there's a gap between this and that, between this 3 and 2. But number 2 is Marchand doesn't get the ball. We'll just leave it right there. I bet you when Marshawn did get the ball, that was like when this bar that we're in right now, that was probably the peak of how great this place really was. If you just look at the decor, it feels like sometimes nothing has happened since that Super Bowl here. Okay, and the number one is got to be the Seattle Supersonics leaving town. No sports fan or no sports team should ever feel that. It's something that doesn't go away. It's absolutely terrible, but that's my list.
That's a great list. I see where you're coming from. I guess for me, real quickly, I don't have a full list like you, but the Marshawn didn't get in the ball in that interception. That probably for a Seattle thing was the worst for me, just because there was a Super Bowl and I had never in my wildest dreams thought that a Seattle professional sports team could be back-to-back champions.
And there's a side part of the story is when that happened, the party you're at, somebody cracked a bottle of champagne and was celebrating before Marshawn did not get the ball.
Yeah, after Curse made that wild catch and it was inevitable we were going to score, But, honestly, you would never guess my most heartbreaking moment as a sports fan. It has nothing to do with Seattle. It probably has to do because I was young. It's when UNLV lost to Duke in the championship with the running Rebs were just run and gun and so cool back then with Larry Johnson, Stacey Ogman.
Coach Tarkanian.
As a young kid, that really chapped me. I was down after that one, but that's kind of you got a great list.
Coach Tarkanian coached that team, and I've told you my Tarkanian story on the campus. I'll share it right here. Excuse me. I was on the campus of Fresno State as a student back in 2001, and I was, driving in a parking lot. I thought being fine, and there's this old guy that just would not go. Actually, I'll save this story for another time. I got to think about it.
Yeah, you're trying to show your age for telling us.
Yeah. But my run-in with him. I had.
Yeah, Tart.
Yeah, Tart. We'll get into that on the next episode. Anyways, I think we've covered everything. We'll be back sometime soon, starting our new season after, of course, the World Series concludes. So just be ready. Then we're not going to be as regular as we were in the playoffs or in the regular season right now. We have a big announcement, which we'll announce on one of the next couple of shows. There's just some things going on.
Good tease.
Some good things going on behind the scenes that we'll talk about once those are all official. And maybe that'll affect when we're doing our shows. Maybe we'll have more frequent shows here in this off season, but definitely be ready for the hot stove. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and all of that shit. If you're getting this on the YouTube side, check it out on the YouTube side. If you're on the YouTube side, go check it out over there. Also, check us out on all of the social medias. I know we have tons of comments and questions and posts from this last month, and we'll get to those when I'm back down in the studio in LA. It's a lot easier to do multi-screen, like I said. So don't think those comments and things are just lost. And don't think if you said something stupid, we forgot. We didn't. We're going to get to you. Anyways, again, thanks for liking, subscribing, all that shit. Thanks to MVPs here on Highway 99. Come check it out. Get in your Rod Stewart requests here. And with that being said, Hanno, you know what time it is. Shut